Welcome back to New Rockstars. This is The Big Question, the show that gives you too much information about how every conspiracy theory about trusted government officials being secret green-skinned aliens is true. And yes, this has turned into the dailybugle.net. Maybe we shouldn't have led that way. I'm Erik Voss. Here with me is Marina Mastros. How you doing, Marina?
I'm good. How are you, Erik?
I'm doing all right. We're hanging in there. We're making it. This may be the way we all talk to each other in the future, and I'm still not used to it.
I have a question. Where's Philip, Erik?
Oh, yes. Thank you for asking, because a lot of you guys have been asking about this. We're sorry that we did mention this in a previous episode of Rogue Theory. Philip still works here. He's just taking a little break from being on camera. He's focusing on some cool behind-the-scenes projects. He will be back on screen. He's still our boss. He's controlling the amount of O2 I'm currently getting in this blue dungeon. So we can't upset him too much.
He has a remote room, an office, and it has cameras on Erik all the time, and he just dials up and down the oxygen. According.
Yep. And if I start to get a little woozy or sleepy, it's because he's dialing down the air just to toy with us. That's his cool off-screen, behind-screen project. Oxygen supply.
Erik!
Now I have too much oxygen! Well, our opening kind of teased this whole idea of shapeshifters hiding in plain sight. So, Marina, what's our big question this week?
Okay, Erik. So, Marvel, it looks like it's planning a Secret Invasion storyline in Phase 4, right? And we've talked about that. But here's the big question, and I want final answers, okay?
Okay.
And if you this up... I'm kidding.
We're all doomed.
Yeah. Who in the MCU is actually a Skrull?
We're back in the Skrull search.
Skrull search.
I've been dying to revisit this question because, yeah, I'm so excited for the Secret Invasion. It seems like Marvel Phase 4 could be headed in that direction based off of some clues of Nick Fury in the Skrull space station. Mm-hmm. We saw some Sword stuff. We know Sword factors in. Let's talk about the Secret Invasion comic event just to catch everyone up.
Okay.
This was the big 2008 crossover event that was following Civil War, in which Marvel just revealed a lot of characters that we've been knowing for years and years are Skrull imposters. And Marina, they kind of use that to explain those characters' odd past behavior.
Yep.
We used to just call that bad writing, but no, they were just Skrulls. They were just Skrulls. Now, it's actually kind of cool. It seemed like a weird idea at the beginning, but the way it played out was awesome.
Yeah.
So Elektra gets killed. She reverts to a Skrull corpse, and everyone freaks out.
Yeah.
They're like, well, if Elektra was a Skrull, who else could be? And as they're doing the autopsy on her, there's this coordinated Skrull strike where a ton of characters who we thought we liked are bad guys. So Hank Pym attacks Reed Richards. He's a Skrull. Dum Dum Dugan blows up the Sword space station.
Oh my God.
Skrull. Edwin Jarvis activates this nanovirus that corrupts Tony Stark's armor and all of Earth's satellite defenses, because Tony Stark is director of S.H.I.E.L.D. at this point. And so S.H.I.E.L.D. goes down. Jarvis, Skrull. Susan Storm of the Fantastic Four, she teleports the freaking Baxter building to the negative zone. She's Skrull. It's awesome how it all happens at once. Now, this all being orchestrated by Spider-Woman Jessica Drew. She is actually the Skrull Queen. They retconned her whole history. And the war plays out. You got to read this comic. I don't want to go like event by event, but all the characters at some point get confused for Skrull imposters because there's this huge melee. It goes back and forth. Spider-Man, Iron Man, Cap, Wolverine. At some point, there's a Skrull version of everyone, and it's super confusing, but it's awesome. Now, yes, we did start to do a Skrull search series last year. Marina, you remember this.
That's
right. We talked about this. We made cases for Nick Fury, for Carol Danvers. We did one for Tony Stark that everyone hated. And people were like, there aren't Skrulls. I remember we got a lot of heat for that Nick Fury one that we did after Captain Marvel, but then Far From Home's freaking post-credits scene, ooh, sweet vindication. Because here we have at least 2 major MCU characters have Skrull doubles, and that blew the lid wide open. The lid was open, but it was all something opened. That was
there was
blown.
a lid and there was a pot, and they weren't together anymore.
That's
after
right.
That.
All of our hair stood up and our hats floated to the ceiling when that happened. So yes, this appears to be the breadcrumbs setting up a Secret Invasion storyline. But here's the deal. We know it's going to be different because the movies have painted the Skrulls as friendly allies. They're not deceitful and nefarious and evil. They're our friends. Some of them are. So I'm thinking the way it might go down is the MCU Secret Invasion might just be like a panic when humans on Earth start to realize that some people among them are actually aliens. They freak out, and then like the way human nature always goes, they start detaining them, and that leads to an unwanted war, even though Talos is our friend, and people have to kind of pick sides.
Little social commentary?
Little social commentary, gotta sneak it in there, because
Little
this is class.
Little cameo.
This is school at the end of the day.
We gotta learn.
Gotta learn. Well, let's run through the full list of surviving Marvel characters. We gotta assess which are Skrulls, and we're gonna do this by asking 2 questions for each character. 1, motive. Why would the Skrulls want this idiot on their team? Or, like, why would they coordinate them as a double? Who's benefiting from that? And 2, the evidence, right? Are there any unexplained inconsistencies in their histories, or their weird physiologies, their allegiances, any plot holes that, different movie screenwriters just, didn't share their notes, and it led to, videos that we do 2 days a week on the channel? And then after we go through each character, we're going to give each person a score out of a scale of 1 to 5. And this is what we did.
A Skrull?
A Skrull? A Skrull score? Skrull score. So the rating system that we used was 1, Skrull safe. 2, Scruncertain. 3, Skrull suspicious. 4, Skrullsidious. And then 5, Scrunfirmed!
Eric, how long did it take you to come up with those?
Far too long. I was like,
And why isn't one of them scrumptious?
Because I didn't think of it, okay? Because that's why teamwork, 2 heads are better than 1.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
And when I'm left alone in the dungeon, sometimes I don't always get to the right answer.
Too much time in the dungeon. Eric, your oxygen! Your oxygen!
Okay, I'm moving along. This is actually a really good system that he's got here. Okay, let's quickly recap the 4 that we've already investigated, starting with Nick Fury. Okay, so the motive. He's head of a spy agency. He is a major target who would benefit from having a body double, right? And,
oh my god.
Like, he was nearly assassinated in Winter Soldier, so it helps to have, another Nick Fury walking around. So kind of like Saddam Hussein had multiple Saddam Husseins. It's a good system. And then we know Nick Fury, he wants to be all places, all times, eyes everywhere.
Last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye.
He wants to keep both eyes open. This is the master of deceit. You're still loud about Saddam Hussein? Trains ran on time. There were no trains there, but trains ran on time.
Keep going. I'll just keep laughing. It's fine.
So, the evidence. We saw Nick Fury turn into a Skrull. He was shapeshifting with Talos. They were working in tandem, and then he was actually on a space station where the Skrulls took his shoes. So, obviously, there is obvious coordination. But the question now is, how long has Nick Fury been a Skrull? How many times when we saw him in the past was he actually a Skrull? And, the guy faked his own death in Winter Soldier. That's kind of weird.
Harsh.
Who does that?
Harsh.
Why would you do it? And somehow, that fooled Natasha Romanov and Steve Rodgers, people who have seen their share of dead bodies and can tell the difference. Very strange. So there might have been Skrull involvement in that fake death. Also, why didn't he use Carol's pager earlier? You mean to tell me Loki's attack in New York was not a serious emergency that Captain Marvel could have helped out with?
Right.
So maybe there's like some Skrull involvement with that. As a Skrull, he knows that she was somewhere on some other mission and could not be taken away from. She was punching Galactus in some Battle World boxing ring, and she cannot be bothered.
Right.
Who knows? Who knows? The fact that we don't know means that the conspiracy is true, right? Right? Of course, there's this detail where his name is Nick Fury, but people only call him Fury, and he says no one ever calls him Nick, and that was a big thing in Captain Marvel. That's how he knew Talos was a Skrull. But people call him Nick all the time throughout the MCU. It happens constantly. And I'm not even going to go through all the times it happens. You could say just over the years, he starts getting more familiar with people. Maria Hill and Steve Rodgers. He's okay with people calling him Nick. But is it a clue? He is also a master manipulator, as we saw with the Coulson cards in Avengers, how he tricked the Avengers into working together. And there's that diagonal toast detail that's a bunch of bullshit that doesn't count. But still, I am going to give him a Skrull score of 5 out of 5, Scrunfirmed. Because we know at some point in his history he had a Skrull doppelganger. So that, to me, is confirmed. Let's move on to Maria Hill. So she was the other one in the car with him in the Far From Home post-credits scene. She is the deputy director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and she would have all the same reasons as Fury to have a Skrull duplicate. And she also has a mysterious background. So here's our evidence. You know, we saw her turn into Soren, and we don't really know a lot about Maria Hill's past. She's a relatively recent Marvel character introduced in 2005 in the comics. In the MCU, her origin's pretty unclear. She, had a mission in Southeast Asia that was mentioned in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but she became deputy director of S.H.I.E.L.D. at age 30.
Good for you.
Which, sure, good for you, but this is S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury worked as a Cold War era spy for years and years and years, for decades of his life, and then at around age 60, he became director of S.H.I.E.L.D. So,
Maybe she just has white privilege.
maybe that is it. Maybe it takes a black male spy working for decades, but a white woman walks in there and says, I was on How I Met Your Mother, give me the job, and they're like,
That's
yes,
right.
ma'am. Or she could be a Skrull who's just posing as a young woman who's around age 30. Oh, what?
Ooh.
What? So either way, we don't know a lot about Maria Hill, and we don't know where the real Maria Hill was at the Far From Home post-credit scene. So I give her a score of 4 out of 5. Skrull Sidious.
Skrull Sidious. I'm gonna say that it's just white privilege, and she's herself. She just gets to the front of the line because she's white.
Fair enough. Moving on to Tony Stark. Now, this was the controversial Skrull Search episode. A lot of downvotes. That like ratio was pretty rough. Pretty rough. Now, what's the motive for Tony Stark? Well, Anthony Stark has access to worldwide defenses and information. He has a huge intel network. And you can imagine a Skrull might want to assimilate as Tony Stark to help the planet Earth, C-53, better defend itself from any, say, Kree invasion that might target it by helping these Terrans build up their tech. And maybe that's why Tony Stark's such a brilliant engineer, is he's actually an extraterrestrial.
Right.
Maybe not. Well, what's the evidence? Well, his body is certainly weird. He had that weird chest cavity where it went through his sternum and his rib cage, as we saw from Pepper Potts' deep reach. How is his chest held together at that point? Is it just a metal ring going down there? Come on.
It's just a pot.
Yeah, he's just a pot. He's just a pot of goo. Goo pot. The big problem here is we saw him die, and he did not turn back into a Skrull, right? So I think we should rate him as 1 out of 5 Skrulls safe.
Definitely
he still gets
Skrull
1 point because we'll see. There's still a chance in the future Secret Invasion that a Skrull might take a dead person's form. This is something they did in the comics.
True.
So everyone gets a score of at least 1 out of 5. No one is a 0 out of 5.
But I agree with that. He's Skrull safe.
And then Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. Her motive, well, she is closer with the Skrulls than anyone else that we've seen in the MCU. She was last seen with them, leading them to their next colony. And they scanned her memory, so they know everything about Carol Danvers' history. And you can imagine, maybe posing as their powerful escort could help scare off enemies. Like someone walks up, Carol Danvers is in the bathroom, shapeshift into Carol Danvers, and they're like, oh shit, there's that Captain Marvel, let's go attack another spaceship.
Exactly.
But the evidence is just kind of this mystery, right? There's a huge gap in her timeline. Where has she been? She really seems more likely than any other character to play a huge role in the Secret Invasion storyline. Seems like something that might be involved in Captain Marvel too. So I think there's kind of a mix here. I feel safe labeling her as 3 out of 5 Skrull-spicious.
These words are the best part of this system.
It's really just so I could say these stupid words. That's what it's all about.
I think that's good because she has a massive amount of time that she has to explain herself for, so we'll see.
Yeah, I went to law school. Leave me alone.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So let's move on to some of the other characters of the MCU, the surviving characters who will be part of Phase 4. And we're going to start with the least likely Skrulls to the biggest red flag Skrull signs. Like, these people might actually be Skrulls. It's going to be really cool if they are. All right, so starting with Peter Parker. So there's actually a pretty good motive for Peter Parker to have a Skrull double identity. Because you got to imagine, at the end of Far From Home, he was being outed as a superhero, as a public menace. All Nick Fury has to do is introduce a Skrull.
Enough is enough! I have had it with these monkey-fighting Skrull.
To give him an alibi, to exonerate Peter Parker and say the person you saw was actually this double Spider-Man. And you can say, like, look, right now we're seeing 2 Spider-Mans at the same time. this poor kid from Queens, you're just being mean to him.
It's rude to point.
So there's actually a pretty good rationale for the Skrulls that we've seen them in the MCU to do this. Also, Spider-Man's a pretty well-known hero. Posing as him could be very beneficial for the Skrull. And yeah, this does happen in the comics. The evidence would be there's some inconsistencies with Peter, like his Peter tingle's a bit, finicky and Far From Home.
Hungry?
We did kind of find out why, but it wasn't very ever clearly labeled why, I would say. There's some inconsistency with his, propensity to murder. So, when he was offered instant kill in Homecoming, he's like, no, Karen, I don't want to do this. And then in Endgame, he's like, give me that instant kill back, please. I want to kill all these things that have families, probably.
I killed them. I killed them all.
We don't know. We don't know. Also, there's this fun detail that some people keep pointing out. There's a possible Talos sighting in the background of his school in the final scenes of Avengers Endgame. A guy kind of looks like Ben Mendelsohn. I don't think it is, but it kind of looks like him. Really, I think the problem is I think Peter would have been looped in on any kind of Skrull conspiracy in Far From Home. That wouldn't have been hidden from him.
Right.
So while he may be a Skrull in the future, as we've seen so far, he is not. So I'm going to label him 1 out of 5 Skrull safe.
Skrull safe.
Skrull safe. Skrull safe. Similarly, Thor. So Thor is the god of thunder. There's a pretty good motive there. He's a feared galactic warrior. And who wouldn't want to look like Chris Hemsworth? Am I right?
That's motivation enough.
It's like, I don't want to work out. I'm just going to shapeshift into this hunk. Now, the evidence would be his weight, right? So Thor got fat in Avengers Endgame. Maybe a Skrull imposter couldn't keep up with a fitness regimen.
I was going to say, so they're just that the Skrull was overweight and then that's it?
We're not blaming Thor for carbo loading. It was this Skrull shapeshifter. But the problem is Thor is ancient, and he's been a critical point of view character. So it's like, I think it's more likely for characters that we haven't seen stories from their point of view, because there's implied subjectivity there. Like, we're kind of in their head. But if they're periphery characters we don't know a lot about, we haven't seen a scene from their point of view, those are the ones we got to keep an eye on. So Thor doesn't really fit in that category. Also, he has the Bifrost. So the Skrulls' whole thing in Captain Marvel is they're trying to build a light speed engine with the Tesseract. If they had the power of the Bifrost, they wouldn't need that. So I think Thor, let's Skrull score of 1 out of 5, Skrull safe.
Skrull safe!
Now let's talk about the retired Steve Rodgers. So the motive, well, he also is a prominent Avenger. There's lots of goodwill. People inherently trust Steve Rodgers. Also, you could say maybe Nick Fury could use Skrull Steve to do all those media spots that he recorded for Spider-Man Far From Home. Like, Steve Rodgers is out avenging around the world, and they just have a double to cut some promos.
How many more of these?
Useful, but it seems a lot of effort. But there is some evidence. Some people say there's that line in Civil War where Zemo goes,
There's a bit of green in the blue of your eyes.
Where Steve Rodgers has just very clearly blue eyes. So was that moment? Was it someone else? I don't know. Steve Rodgers predates the Skrull arrival that we know of. He was frozen in ice throughout the 80s and 90s.
Right.
He wasn't involved with any of that. Also, he's done. He's an old man now. They might try to duplicate him in the future, but I don't think Chris Evans is coming back anytime soon, aside from maybe a cameo. But I don't think we're going to reveal that any of the past times we saw him, he was a Skrull. So 1 out of 5, Skrull safe.
Skrull safe!
Skrull safe! Ooh, but let's move on to Bucky Barnes, because he does have a more complicated backstory, right? So Bucky Barnes was a Winter Soldier, someone who was considered a ghost, right? He was an assassin who seemed to appear in multiple places at the same time. No one really knew where he was. And yeah, there are huge gaps in his history. The guy does not age. Now, yes, he did have a Hydra cocktail of super soldier serum, but the whole point of the super soldier serum is Erskine went to the USA and made a specific unique formula that worked for Steve Rodgers. And then maybe Zola just kind of reverse engineered it, but it's not really clear what Bucky got. He got a form of serum. We saw the blue bags in Civil War. So really, anyone can just have that serum now? Maybe there might be more to it. We don't know. Also, he appeared to die, and then he just came back. But okay, I'm still more on the fence with Bucky. He can recall memories with Steve from their youths in the 20s and 30s. Or you mean to tell me that a Skrull assimilated him from the beginning? No. So I'm gonna say 2 out of 5. Uncertain when it comes to Bucky Barnes.
That's the best wordplay.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by his history, but I don't need to see him be revealed as a Skrull the whole time. I think there's other more interesting places you could go with this character. But let's talk about Hank Pym. Hank Pym's an interesting one. He would have a pretty big motive to be targeted by the Skrull. You gotta think about it.
Totally.
Maybe they wanted Hank Pym to help expand Terran tech with some bonkers pseudoscience that makes no freaking sense. Maybe because it's extraterrestrial. And he would be at the heart of S.H.I.E.L.D. throughout late 20th century history. The evidence being he is one of the big Skrull reveals in the comics. And he is stubborn and kind of insane. He doesn't seem to give a shit about Earth's laws or institutions. The problem is he did quit S.H.I.E.L.D. right when the Skrulls would need someone inside S.H.I.E.L.D. on the inside in the late 80s. He quit in 87. All the Captain Marvel stuff was happening in 89. So I score him at 2 out of 5. Scruncertain.
Scruncertain!
Let's quickly talk about Wong and the other sorcerers. So, it would be very useful for the Skrulls to have someone on the inside of the sorcerer community Facebook page, right? And Wong's a weird one. He totally sits out Infinity War. Bruce Banner's like, well, I'm going to keep fighting in this movie. And Wong's like, all right, I'm going to defend this building. But he delights in human food, kind of like, Talos loved fast food. He loves his tuna melts. He loves his Ben & Jerry's. But he does seem to be, like, Earth-centered. Like, when he shows Doctor Strange how it all works, he just showed the planet Earth. He didn't show anything else in the cosmos, which you would think he would care a bit more about the cosmos if he was from another planet. So I score him 2 out of 5. Scruncertain.
Scruncertain!
All right, Rhodey, James Rhodes. Yeah, there's a motive here. He's the one who gets Tony Stark to share his tech with, like, the public resources, with the world governments. And you gotta think, like, maybe you could see the Skrulls being like, well, there's this brilliant Earthling, but we gotta make sure all of Earth gets access to this weaponry. Maybe that's what Rhodey's mission was. The big evidence being, he looked like Terrence Howard in one movie and then Don Cheadle in the next. Boom, looking for that? Yeah. But I don't know.
Worst Skrull impression.
Yeah, he's not hiding it at all. He just forgot what he looked like. He's like, now I think this is what Don, he looks like this guy? Yeah. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I think he seems like a pretty grounded vet. He's been around for a while, but he hasn't really... He's usually pretty well accounted for. And there's plenty of times where it would have really benefited him to shapeshift into someone else, and he didn't. So I'm going to say 2 out of 5, Scruncertain for Jimmy Rhodey.
Boom. You looking for this?
Now let's talk about Hawkeye, Clint Barton. Let's take a look at this guy. He is a skilled assassin with a covert globe-trotting skill set. Pretty good motive for a Skrull to want to assimilate into that guy. And you could also argue, well, he was under house arrest for a while. Maybe he wanted to have a Skrull sit in for him as he continues avenging on secret missions without the ankle monitor. Yeah, not all these motives are airtight, Marina. I'm just gonna tell you now.
He just needed a babysitter.
Yeah, it's for babysitting. It's a completely valid excuse to have a double. Now the evidence would be, there was that line in Avengers where he goes,
You and I remember Budapest very differently.
he doesn't understand how Natasha describes this event as Budapest, maybe because he wasn't there.
Yeah.
Also, I'll say it was interesting how he was so willing to sacrifice himself in Endgame, sure, out of love for Natasha, but also he had a family. He had a chance to get his family back. That was driving him so much. Why would he now be okay with, like, well, I'm going to bring my family back, but I'm not going to see them. I don't know.
If I were his kid, I'd be pissed.
Yeah, I'd be like, wait, he did what? Why
Yeah.
didn't he let that family-less spy jump off the cliff? Also, Clint understands the properties of the Tesseract, surprising Fury in a scene at the beginning of Avengers, right? He goes, it must be activated from the other side, and Nick Fury's like, wait, how do you know how the Tesseract works? He's like, oh, it's a door, right? Door's open for both sides, right? All right. Bad writing, maybe, but we're gonna score him 2 out of 5, Scruncertain.
Pretty low.
Okay, Natasha Romanov, the Black Widow. She is deceased in the current timeline, but we will see her in like an earlier period in history in the Black Widow film. She is a super spy. She's got connections to S.H.I.E.L.D., connections in Stark Industries, connections with the Russians. She's already a master of disguise. And maybe because she's got this complicated Red Room history, no one would look deeper into this dark history. They would just assume it's KGB related, but I realize it could also be extraterrestrial. Maybe. One thing that I always found interesting is Nick Fury at the end of Age of Ultron said, hey, we're trying to track Hulk, but we saw this jet crash in the middle of the ocean. We haven't been able to identify it.
Right.
And she never looks into it.
Right.
Of course, it's not Hulk. He's over on Sakaar. So what the hell was that ship? And why wasn't Natasha freaked out about it? Maybe because it was a Skrull ship. And she just covering it up. Yeah, I'll look into it as I'm actively tearing up this report and burning the evidence. Now, there's also an interesting little moment in Endgame where she claimed to not know her father was named Ivan on Vormir. She's like, oh, I never knew my father. Despite the same writers and directors of that movie had a deleted scene in Civil War where she claimed to have found her parents' graves years earlier. How do you know it's your parents' graves if they're unmarked? She didn't say they were unmarked. She just said they were in this random spot. Like, you gotta assume a name was on the grave, or she would have to know their names in order to find those graves. But yeah, the big issue is when we saw her die, for the brief moment that the camera lingered on her, she did not turn back into a Skrull, right? So that seems to be pretty safe. But there might be more to this story. I'm still going to leave her at 2 out of 5 Skrull certain, because there still might be another Natasha out there. Which brings us to our next character, who I think might be more likely a Skrull, Yelena Belova, Florence Pugh's character in the upcoming Black Widow. She is also a spy operative for all the reasons why Natasha Romanov could be a Skrull. So is Yelena Belova possibly one. Now, something weird is going on with Yelena in the Black Widow trailer footage. She's got there's like a face swap surgery going on that we spotted, where there's like a marker line drawn around her face as she's strapped down to like a surgeon table. She is wearing the same vest in this movie that Natasha later shows up wearing in Infinity War. So think about it. If she were a Skrull, she wouldn't need to surgically face swap. She could just go,
right.
You know. But you could imagine a scenario where Skrull Yelena poses as Natasha, as Scarlett Johansson, to take her place in Infinity War and in Endgame. That's the character we saw. Meanwhile, human Natasha gets Yelena's face surgically implanted on hers, and she lives on as Florence Pugh in the MCU. Same character, different actress, who's not as expensive as Scarlett Johansson is.
Oh my god.
So it's a little crazy. I just think there's a lot of strange inconsistencies. Maybe after Black Widow eventually comes out, we'll come back to this movie like this. It's crazy. But I'm going to rate Yelena Belova as 3 out of 5 Skrull-spicious.
That is a pretty insane theory, but I'm on board. I'm on for the ride.
I totally agree. I just can't think of like other reasons why they would show us in the trailer this weird surgeon line around her face.
Right.
Something is going on.
Yeah.
And there is a comic where they do get face swapped. That surgically there's a face off.
Oh, no. Yeah, Eric, I was going to say that movie's called Face Off. That's not...
Yep. So it's possible. Okay, let's talk about Sharon Carter. So Sharon Carter is a very high-ranking post-Hydra SHIELD agent. So it'd be one thing if this was before the Hydra reveal, but she's there after the Hydra reveal. So we know she's up there. How did she survive that? Why was she not sucked in to the Hydra conspiracy? How did she rise so far up? Well, maybe because she has another allegiance, that of the Skrull race. And she's connected with the Avengers. She's one of these periphery characters, and she's sneaky. She lied to Steve at least once, and the Endgame screenwriters wanted to show her in a failing relationship with Steve during the blip. That was scrapped from Endgame. But, you know, if you think about it, Marvel might be planning something more for this character as a result of that. I just think she, like Happy Hogan, she would be a really cool I Swear the Whole Time candidate that no one would like bat an eye at.
That would be a good, like, chess piece to have in the game.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So 3 out of 5 Skrull-spicious.
Skrull-spicious.
All right, let's move on to some very inconsistent, interesting candidates. Bruce Banner, Hulk, right? So what would be the motive to impersonate Bruce Banner? Well, it might be useful to impersonate the most powerful rage monster on the planet, but also, alternatively, maybe there's like a partnership that Bruce has where he has a Skrull double fights his battles as Hulk for him, while he can continue on to try to reach this like stasis, you know? Does that make sense? Like you could still have the Skrull identity with like the classic Hulk identity rather than like Endgame kind of ending his arc, it seems.
Yeah.
It's the reason I bring him up now is Banner just has a lot of explaining to do. So he should not have remembered Hulk memories in Infinity War. That's the whole point. When he goes into Hulk, he blacks out. He doesn't remember anything from that time period. And Ragnarok, he's like, wait, what year is it? It was like he was in the back room of a party, didn't know what was going on. But in Infinity War, he knew all about Thanos. It's like he was in the front row of whatever was going on there. Also, Hulk should not have lost a fist fight against Thanos in Infinity War. Hulk never loses a fight. He just gets angrier and madder, and he keeps fighting forever. Also, Smart Hulk is just like kind of a bizarre identity that never does anything truly Hulk-like in Endgame. Yeah, he absorbs the blast of the Infinity Stones, but like he never hulks. He never goes crazy, he never rage monsters. He seems like someone who's like impersonating the Hulk. It's awkward for him. And I'll also say, despite of all the Avengers, he's been like the least point of view character, just because Marvel doesn't fully own the rights to the Hulk. They can't do just like another Hulk movie without working with Universal. So it paints Marvel in a corner where they're kind of running out of things to do with him. He might be like the most high-profile Avenger that they could reveal as a Skrull and do interesting things with.
I can see this one just because he was so different in Endgame compared to like how he behaved in his abilities in previous movies. It's like, yeah, and everybody, you know, kind of complained about that a little bit, and this would explain it.
Yeah, this could be one very interesting explanation that could give you a way to reset the character. So I'm going to rate Bruce Banner 4 out of 5 Skrull Sidious.
Ooh.
And then move on to a character I think is a very likely candidate. Secretary Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, William Hurt's character. His motive? Well, he is the United States Secretary of State. He represents the government in these movies ever since President Matthew Ellis never really shows up after Iron Man 3.
Ready, sir?
What do you mean, Rick?
They just kind of use Ross as the representative of the government. You could imagine he would want to rein in all the variable threats on this planet, possible collateral damage with the Sokovia Accords, gives them more control. And you know, alien species probably get to Earth and they're like, wait, you have 100-something different governments? You don't have like a world government that's supreme? That doesn't make sense. You must constantly be at war with each other. Oh, you are? Oh. So this is like a movement towards, you know, that kind of like globalism. Anytime there's globalism, there might be some conspiracy involved there. Also, in the Secret Invasion comics, yeah, political figures are impersonated. At one point, you see someone who looks like Obama and someone who looks like McCain, who are Skrulls who are like, everything's fine.
Yeah.
So this guy's got to be a Skrull. The biggest evidence being he disappeared for several years after a mysterious heart attack that he says gave him perspective. Yeah, right.
Nobody gains perspective after a heart attack, idiot.
No. I will say, if something fishy is going on with Ross, I hope that it's more likely that he's like going to become Red Hulk, and that's the big story there, rather than him be a Skrull. But like, why not both? He could be both a Skrull, and then also like, but really, my other self is becoming Red Hulk. So I'm gonna rate Secretary Ross 4 out of 5 Skrull Sidious.
Skrull Sidious, he can have it all. He can do both.
He can do both. And this brings us to our final name on the list, someone who I think is very, very likely a Skrull, and I might be a little disappointed if they don't make him a Skrull. Howard Stark. Tony Stark's father.
Really? Wow.
So here's my reasoning for this. A lot of my argument for Tony Stark being a Skrull was really based on Howard Stark's mysterious backstory. What would the motive be? Well, I can imagine back in the early 20th century, the Skrulls identifying planet Earth and sending a scout to this planet to check it out as a possible Skrull refuge option. And then while he's there, he enriches its technology with seemingly God-given divine insight to how to create the arc reactor design. Like, this guy, there's something off about him. He had early access to the Tesseract, but for some mysterious reason, he handed it off to Marvel, to Annette Bening, Wendy Lawson, to help the Skrull build a lightspeed engine. Why would he do that?
Yeah. Why
would he be okay with it being floated up to orbit if he didn't have some kind of connection or relationship there? We also know he's been a pretty absent father to Tony. He was, when Tony talked to him in Endgame, Howard Stark was just kind of like confused about the details of pregnancy. He's like, I'm just going to give her sauerkraut. She might be this far along. I don't know how humans procreate.
Yeah, really.
We poop out eggs, and then we let birds watch over them for, I don't know how Skrulls procreate. I just assume it's not mammalian at all.
It's like snakes.
Yeah, it's like snakes.
The male rattlers perform a weird ritual of one-upsmanship.
So yeah, I just think Howard Stark is even more of a genius than Tony Stark. So much of Tony Stark's genius comes directly from Howard. Howard Stark was able to ingeniously design the city of tomorrow to have an atomic structure that he probably based on his experimentation with Infinity Stone tech. Also, I'll say that, you know, when he died in the flashback in 1991 in Civil War, we didn't see him revert to a Skrull, of course.
That's right.
But the camera also didn't linger on his final breaths. We saw him like get his head slammed, and then, you know, because it's a PG-13 movie, you're not gonna see his like face cave in. Horrible thing. He turns back green. So I think it is very, very likely that Howard Stark is a Skrull or has been, or has more of a historical connection based off some of the weird things we've been told about his history. So I'm gonna reach out here and say 5 out of 5 Howard Stark. Scrunfirmed!
Wow, I actually really like that. Not because it's like, oh, I just want to have a Skrull be somewhere formative. It actually would explain a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and no one would be offended by that if Howard Stark, if you got John Slattery back in there, he'd be like, what is this? Sure, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then no one would be like, wait, hold on, because he's been kind of off screen for most of these movies.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And there's also a really weird thing in Age of Ultron that I'm just remembering now. When Ultron was going through all the database, there's this weird shot of Howard Stark in the 50s where they blurred John Slattery with the other guy who played him into one face mash thing that kind of looks like he's shape-shifting a little bit. It's like the mid-Animorphs thing, where it's both overlaid, blurred into each other. There's some Skrullspiracy stuff going on there.
Whoa.
So, in summation, Marina, I would say at least one of the characters we've mentioned in the MCU will be revealed as a Skrull, hopefully
Guaranteed.
several of them. And it's likely to be someone who knows more than they let on, someone who ranks high in the government or society, especially post-Hydra MCU. And someone who is important, but someone who won't piss off everyone if they were to be revealed as a Skrull. So I think people like Howard Stark, Secretary Ross, Sharon Carter sound like the solid options in my book. Now, I didn't mention the Guardians of the Galaxy, the Asgardians. Anybody who I consider to be on the rocket path, go watch that video that I talked about. Just because they're already absurdists. They're already extraterrestrials. The point of Secret Invasion is to reveal how these simple humans that you've trusted all this time are actually sneaky green aliens. So, it's not as fun when it's already a green alien like Gamora turning into just a different green alien.
You can't pull the rug out and then pull the floor out.
Right. Or you pull out the rug and then you just keep them on the rug. I don't know, different part of the house. It's you're just going to drag me around on this rug. All right. Fine, I'm still standing. All right, before we move on to some bite-sized questions, just want to give a quick reminder that you can help support this channel by becoming a patron at patreon.com/newrockstars. And the biggest benefit of this is you get access to our official exclusive Discord server. That's where we do all of our real deep dive theory discussion. We've met some of our greatest supporters, amazing people who are part of this community. It's I've been part of other Discord servers. I don't know if you felt this way, Marina. If you explore this world, it can be kind of scary. Discord.
Oh yeah.
It's not always a safe space, but ours is a very supportive, friendly group of people, and I love all of them. And it's fun to rewatch these movies with them in the room. We just did that with Alien. And I was like, this is one of my favorite screenings of Alien that I've done with these Discord folks.
Fun.
So again, if you want to join that Discord, you have to be a patron at any patron tier level. Obviously, it would help us out if you can give more, but if you can't give that much, we'll take whatever you can give us at patreon.com/newrockstars.
The highest level of patron gets to control Eric's level of oxygen.
I'm back. All right, let's move on to some bite-sized questions. Marina's going to take these. You ready, Marina?
Yeah!
All right, number one, Oliver on Twitter asked, how does Thor still have his powers after Asgard was destroyed?
Right, so you would think that once Asgard is destroyed that things wouldn't work anymore, right? But Odin said in Ragnarok, Asgard is not a place, it's a people. And
a people.
It's a people. Why is he Irish? It's a people. It's a
just
potato.
Because you don't know if it's a peephole, something that's not okay.
It's a potato people.
It's a potato people.
So we find out then that Thor's powers are not bound to the physical structure of Asgard, just like the people don't have to stay on that planet. They don't just disappear. They're portable, he's portable, the powers are portable. So after Ragnarok was destroyed, Heimdall prayed to the Allfathers to summon the Bifrost, if you remember, in Infinity War. And the Bifrost continues to function just fine via Stormbreaker. So we see it work without Asgard anyway. And Thor is the god of thunder, and Asgard is wherever the Asgardian people currently reside. So it's not like thunder just stops working just because there's no planet. So he can take his powers anywhere as long as he's with his people and that his people are somewhere surviving, then he has his powers and he's still connected to that source.
That's right. Now, presumably, if all the other Asgardians did die, Thor, if he was the only survivor, I don't know. I guess he still is Asgard. He still is a people. So if Thor was the only survivor, he might probably, yeah.
It's like Fern Gully. As long as there's one left, there's hope.
As long as there's one, that's beautiful. I'm so glad we got Fern Gully in on this.
Oh, gravity works.
Oh, I love it. All right, moving on to our next question. Colonel Hogan on Discord asks, when exactly was Edith developed and named?
So Tony wore Edith sunglasses in Infinity War, which is 2018. But he has had satellite-linked AI interfaces as early as Age of Ultron, which is 2015.
Yeah.
So after Jarvis becomes Vision in Age of Ultron, Tony upgrades to Friday, which suggests that he has sort of like several alternate versions of operating systems sort of like ready to go or ready to plug in. So Edith was a program he probably already had invented sometime between 2018 and 2023, but he didn't name it Edith until he anticipated his possible death in Endgame, which is in 2023, around when he recorded the goodbye message for Pepper and Morgan.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because
right.
it's even dead, I'm the hero, right? So,
Exactly.
like, he would need to, in order to anticipate the dead part, it must be around the time where he's like, okay, I might die.
Which is 2023. So sometime between those 2 years.
Yeah, he had the AI, he had all the technology in place for years and years earlier, but he didn't like codify it as Edith until right before that final battle in Endgame.
Which is cute because he just has a bunch of like helpful AI people just sitting around waiting to be named.
That's right. And there was one where it was like the Big Hero 6 thing in Age of Ultron. There was like a chip that's like, oh, the Big Hero 6. So he has like all kinds of ones, with all kinds of names that I'm excited to see hopefully in the future. All right, we have time for one more question from our box of scraps. Let's see.
Box of scraps!
I wrote it on this receipt here.
Oh my god.
Well, I don't have access to our P.O. box, and someone else has a key. All right.
Is it a CVS receipt?
Yes, it is.
Hold it. Run that back.
Wait a minute.
Let's enhance it.
This question is, what social media faux pas do you regret? I got a couple stories, I think, on this one.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so before I started doing New Rockstars with you guys, I had like probably literally 11 followers on everything. And I don't know if it's a social media faux pas, but I don't change the way that I run my social media, even though I have all these followers from New Rockstars who probably
Nor
want...
should you. You should stay true to your... It's good that you
well,
don't do that.
it's like, I just know that everybody's like, where's Star Trek? Where's Buffy? Like, where's Horse? Like, all that stuff. And it's like... exclusively like social justice, like
oh sure, yeah,
content and political posting, like very, very leftist postings, and I'm just like, every person who follows me, I feel like being like, I'm sorry, you're not gonna get anything that you
this
want.
Is not what you came here for.
This is not what you
is
came
me.
here for. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Like Marina and I met doing improv and comedy at a theater, and like that. So my account was just like me trying to like get comedians to retweet my jokes, and every once in a while I'll still try to do that with a hot take, and people are like, why aren't you working on Spider-Man? Oh right. I end every video with like, well, I just finished that Wolverine theory. Follow me on Twitter. So everyone, that's why they follow me.
Everybody's just like, get back to work.
Yeah, I have gotten that. I'll say my faux pas story, I have definitely, I don't know if you've had this before, I have accidentally allowed myself to get triggered by trolls, you know? And that's exactly what they want. They want to get under your skin.
You're feeding them!
And then I get into it. I've gotten into it for sure.
Yeah.
Because I can't let go of that back and forth. So actually, yeah, so this connects, Marina and I used to perform at I.O. West. This is this theater in Hollywood, R.I.P.
R.I.P.
It was a great community, but it was just like, it suffered from past managers who just ran it into the ground.
Oh my
and
God,
in the last couple years of it, our friends took over the theater as like the local management, but it was just too little too late, I think. And they were great. One of them was off-screen producer Zach Huddleston, who is such a fantastic administrator and had such big ideas. But the owners in Chicago just pulled the plug, which is so unfair. And they did it with like 11 days notice. It broke all of our hearts. But throughout those final years, you know, we all love the community, but a lot of us felt that disillusionment. I don't know if you felt that way.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like we loved the people there, but we all kind of like would make
looking
fun of
around
the owners.
like, ugh, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that came out of this was a Twitter account called The Improv Guru. Do you know The Improv Guru?
What is this? Tell me.
Okay, The Improv Guru, it's this parody Twitter account that's actually evolved into this whole other thing. And it's super funny. He was like anonymous. It was someone in the community was posting like just trolling people like the owner, Sharon Halpern in Chicago, Matt Besser at UCB.
Oh my
all these
God!
different teachers. It was just kind of making fun of the weird culty culture of improv.
That's
and
so funny.
And how it's like so self-serious but
Yeah.
toxic in other ways. And like because it was anonymous, this person would be so like brutal
Go for the
sometimes.
gut, yeah.
Yeah, and I loved it. I thought it was so
Yeah!
funny. And then when I.O. closed,
Oh no.
Improv Guru did what he always did.
Oh,
and was just, like, making fun of everyone. And at the time, I was so hurt by I.O.
Oh,
closing.
no.
Like that's where I met all the people, all my
Yeah,
friends.
of course.
And I was losing my clubhouse, and I just
Yeah.
could not take a joke. I could not take a joke. So he said, I can't remember what it was. He tweeted something like, I.O. Oh, so sad to see I.O. closing. Nice to see these final shows have full houses. Maybe if they packed the houses while the theater was still open, it wouldn't have closed. Or something.
That's pretty good, actually.
Very true. Very, very true. But at the time, like he was kind of like dormant for a while, but then I.O. closed, and it was like
Yeah.
every day a new tweet. And to me,
Yeah.
it felt like you're just dancing on the grave.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't take it. I couldn't take it, Marina.
What did you
So
do?
I responded because here's the deal. I knew who this was. I knew who this person was.
What a twist!
And I knew him, one of the funniest improvisers
Yeah.
from Chicago. You can look him up if you want. He's not a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's really, really funny. And every interaction I had with him face to face, super nice.
Yeah.
But he's anonymous, and I knew him as like a teacher, and he's one of the people who was running the training center for a while. And at the time, I was kind of blaming everyone from the old leadership. In my mind, he was one of the guys who like
Yeah.
everyone at I.O. just gave jobs to his friends, didn't really care about the
totally.
business end of it.
Yeah.
And like in my mind, I'm like, dude, you you caused this theater.
Yeah.
You helped drive it into the ground, and now you're dancing on its
Right.
grave.
Yeah.
You.
Yeah.
So I got so mad, and then I called him out, which big mistake because he's just trolling. So he just
Yeah.
responds back in jest. And then I look, and all of his Chicago friends, which, by the way, I.O. Chicago at the time, they were so happy to see iOS close.
Oh my
they were
God.
happy to dance on that grave.
Yeah,
so when they see their
totally.
buddy from Chicago shitting on the iOS
Yep.
community, they're like,
Yep.
yep, and they loved it. And they loved seeing someone like me, some
No!
unfunny nerd from iOS, take it too seriously. So I went back and forth for a while. And then you can't, it's like trying to heckle one of the funniest comedians.
Yeah.
Even if you're like, you're right and you're taking offense to the joke, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
You're not going to win.
Yeah.
And he trounced me. He totally trounced me. And like sometime later I went back and I was like, tail between the legs. I just deleted the tweets.
You know what, Eric? If you want to revive that thread, I will be on your side and we will take that motherfucker down. Let's get on Twitter. Let's get on Twitter right now.
No. Because here's the deal. It's like the world does need it. There are some really weird things in the improv community that definitely need parody. I think a lot of comedians can't take criticism, and especially a lot of people in improv because we're like artists trying to change the world with our yes anding. And, and there are a lot of like toxic people in that community that he savaged, that he destroyed. It was so great to see him go after him. So I don't want him to stop it. I want him to keep doing what he's doing. He turned his Twitter persona into like a short film that was really good. So like at the end of the day, he was right to win. And it taught me a valuable lesson. Like trolls are gonna troll. Just let them do their thing.
Trolls are gonna troll, that's true. Yeah. The other lesson is, though, if you come for Erik Voss on Twitter,
I thought you said if you comfort Erik Voss on Twitter,
no.
you do with me. You only give him hell.
I'm the only one who
wipe his tears.
Erik Voss.
Don't you coddle this snowflake. You let him. He's mine.
That's even better. That's better.
Well, that is our show, Marina. It's been so great to relive old times with you and to go through all these Skrull options.
Yes. I'm going to watch your Twitter now. If anybody comes for you, I'll just get at them.
For all of you watching, thank you so much for sending in questions. And a reminder, join our Discord by becoming a patron at patreon.com/newrockstars. You can also get an audio version of the show by subscribing to New Rockstars Big Question wherever you get your podcasts. Send us your big questions on Twitter using the hashtag Big Question or by mailing us at our P.O. Box. You follow me at EA Voss, follow Marina at Marina Mastros. And follow New Rockstars on social. Subscribe here on YouTube to get too much information on all the stuff you care about. And stick around after the credits. the butt!